Welcome back to the Unaffiliated Mind, and today we have another one. We're going to be talking about a couple stories regarding a state's actions to ensure voting integrity stays intact. Now, this is one of many hot topics right now in the media sphere that's getting a lot of attention. Now, even though the numbers aren't as massive in this particular story, it's still a concern that needs to be addressed to help place more safeguards and protections with our elections. Now, what makes this interesting is that I'm referring to a deep red state, to where they have the majority within the government body, and that state is Alabama. Now, it's important to provide context on how this specific topic may not be a direct correlation with all types of fraud, but this could be an indicator to identify an issue and be proactive in producing a solution that will reassure the voters that the law is being upheld. Now, without further ado, let's jump into our first story, to where 3 individuals in the state of Alabama were charged with absentee ballot fraud. Let's take a look.
Some Alabama lawmakers are reacting to the indictment of 3 people in Russell County who are accused of election crimes.
State Capitol reporter Ryan Hall brings us details from Montgomery.
State leaders are sharing their thoughts on whether more needs to be done to protect elections in the state of Alabama. This comes after 3 people were charged with violating election law in the state. According to the Office of Secretary of State Wes Allen, a Russell County grand jury has separately indicted 3 people with absentee election crimes. Secretary Allen says laws cracking down on absentee ballot harvesting have strengthened election integrity in the state.
Absentee balloting is important. A lot of people use absentee ballots, but we've got to protect it from those that want to manipulate that process and get paid to do that.
Representative Kelvin Datcher says security is important, but it shouldn't cost someone their right to vote.
Yeah, I think we've gone overboard a little bit in not protecting the right to vote. It should be as expansive as possible. We should let folks give them all the opportunities in the world to participate in our American democracy.
Datcher says bringing early voting to the state would help with that.
And there's no evidence, none whatsoever, that there's widespread voter malpractice in the state. So I think we should really be focused on ensuring as many folks get out to vote every single election as possible.
Still, Secretary Allen says accountability is key.
At the end of the day, I want the people of this state, when they lay their head down on their pillows at night after Election Day, to know they've got the utmost trust and confidence in the accuracy and accountability, transparency in our elections.
Secretary Allen says his office will see to it those who break the law are held fully accountable. In Montgomery, Ryan Hall, CBS 42 News.
The Secretary of State there, what he was stating is that, hey, accountability and transparency, that's what it's all about. We want to let you know what we're doing is the right thing, is that we are taking these things seriously and we're investigating them, and that charges are being brought to those that do commit these type of crimes. Now, as far as that that Democratic official and what they were talking about, I understand what you're saying is that there's no widespread version of fraud that's out there, but I will say is that it still is an indicator that you should be checking the systems to make sure that you are not being susceptible to those type of loopholes that can really damage the confidence in the system that is there to protect the rights of voters. So I did want to read about this more. So Wes Allen, Alabama's Secretary of State, is providing an election integrity update on the cases of the 3 individuals charged with absentee ballot harvesting in Russell County. Since the individual's arrest in August, a Russell County grand jury has separately indicted the 3 individuals with a combined total of 33 counts related to absentee election crimes, including 13 felony counts and 20 misdemeanor counts. This Russell County grand jury returned indictments on 33 counts of absentee election law violations. The actions of this grand jury reflect Alabama's values and send a clear message to anyone considering breaking Alabama's election law. Neither the Secretary of State nor the people of Alabama will tolerate election fraud, Allen explained, which is definitely true. So it does send a message out there for those that are trying to take advantage of the system. Now, I did want to jump into the second story, which is still in Alabama, but more aligned with some of the revelations that have been on full display regarding non-citizens voting. Let's take a look.
Election integrity has been a hot topic recently nationwide and here in Alabama. Today, the Secretary of State releasing new details from an audit to remove non-citizens from state voter rolls. The Alabama Secretary of State's office already reported last week that 186 voters had been identified as non-citizens and ineligible to vote. That figure amounts to less than 0.1% of those on Alabama voter rolls. Now, we know exactly where those individuals were registered. 21 in Madison County, for instance. That's the second highest number among all counties in the state, behind Jefferson County. But the audit also found of the 186 illegal voters, only 25 cast a ballot. Fox 54 spoke with Secretary of State Wes Allen, and he tells us these audits are worth it, even if very few illegal voters are found.
It's worth it. And even one non-citizen on our voter file, and even one non-citizen that cast a ballot is too many. The standard is high in our office. And, this process started a while back, and we signed a memorandum of understanding with DHS back last summer and then started the process. We've got about a 3.7 million or so registered voters on our voter file here in the state of Alabama. And it took a while.
As far as the audits are concerned, Secretary Allen also tells Fox 54 that there are no plans to stop similar audits from happening in the future.
Only American citizens should be voting in Alabama elections, plain and simple. And, as long as I'm Secretary of State, we're going to continue to have regular and robust voter file maintenance because it is the foundation of election integrity. If we don't get voter file maintenance right, it can really get off in a ditch in a hurry.
Allen says of the 25 people who illegally voted in an election, law will be referred to law enforcement.
Yeah, that's great to hear as far as like they're taking this seriously. And I like what the Secretary of State said is that, hey, look, we're not going to stop doing these audits. Like these audits need to continue to happen. And as those audits happen, we're going to continue to take action. And that's what you want out of an elected official. You want them to take this seriously, not like, this is not a big deal. There's no evidence of widespread fraud. But I think that's the first mistake. You're presuming that this couldn't happen. I think the key point is from these two stories is that fraud can happen in a deep red state like Alabama. And if it can happen in Alabama, then just let your imagination run wild in a blue state that may be hell-bent on accumulating power and keeping that power so that they can enforce their policies within that state or in the United States. And I think that from the federal government standpoint is that we're headed in the right direction with the SAVED Act. So anyways, get at me in the comments. Please be safe out there. And remember, please subscribe, like, and share an unaffiliated mind. Until next time, deuces. Yes, sir.